Okay. Good morning. Good day. Good afternoon. Oh, let me fix. Okay, we're good here. Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? How are we doing? Good afternoon. Almost evening. Almost evening. It's at 5 o'clock over there in the UK. Evening, James. Hello from Greenland. Matthew, you're in Greenland? Or are you just messing with me? Humphrey, what's good? Hello, Matt. Salute. Varetshelia. We will talk about him, though I don't think there's much to talk about. 6 o'clock there. Yeah, that's right. Rip Sean Dyche. Gone from Everton. Another one bites the dust. What do you guys think? Who should go there? Ollie Solskjaer? Solskjaer would be a good pick for me. Solskjaer would be a good pick for me. I think that'd be a good one for them. Moyes will probably be the one, though, yeah. Jose's not going to join. Jose's not going to join. Good evening, Ed. Evening, everybody. Everton fans hate Moyes. Your weather is in our yard here in Texas. Yeah, it's snowing like crazy here today. Oh, mixing Discord world on YouTube. Yeah. We're actually gonna get no. I don't think we'll get Kvaratskhelia. Obviously, all the talk seems to be about PSG. But we also have Amad Diallo signing his new contract. Isn't that good news? Isn't that good news? What's the situation in LA? I don't know. It's obviously not the same here. I've got a couple people I know in LA, obviously, and they're all okay where they are, but obviously it's pretty scary stuff over there with the fires. They haven't had rain in like ages and ages, so I feel for them. Ugly situation, isn't it? Ugly situation. Where the hell am I? Okay. So yeah, welcome. Yeah, Nuno not joining. Yeah, we'll talk about that. I don't think Nuno or Kirkes. I think I said that on my last video that they both looked really difficult. Really difficult as to January. They're really difficult as to January to get those in, for sure. But yes, Ahmad, new contract. And just to kind of summarize the situation with Ahmad, because I think it's worth saying here, they started, I think it was in May that I first said on a video where we were at that they had started the contract talks with Ahmad. And now it's January. It took a long time to get that deal done. And a big part of that was the obvious, right? I mean, you guys remember when 2 months ago when he was asked to come off the bench and he was looking real unhappy under Ten Hag. And now he's, one of the most important players at United, as it should be. And yeah, that's definitely a talent we could have lost. You see Duncan Castle's also confirming, not to keep going back on this point on Ten Hag, but you see Duncan Castle's also confirming that Ten Hag didn't want Ugarte. Yeah. We know, don't we? We know that this was the case. And those are arguably our two best players. Would you say? Ahmad and Ugarte, arguably our two best players right now. That's crazy. What happens? The way football goes. But it is a big reason why you want to leave things to, the people in charge in this instance for the most part, in order to, Maguire, yeah. In order to, build your squad, you've got people who are experts at squad building. You got people who are experts at squad building, and that's what you want to leave it to. And right now, of course, who are we struggling to sell? Was everybody we gave new contracts to and bought over the last 3 years. Oh man, and Maguire. Hey, I did note this. I did note this in my video. Harry Maguire is technically Amarim's first signing in a sense, isn't he? He was the first player that they agreed to stay longer under Ruben Amorim was Harry Maguire. Spot on with Wilcox getting more responsibility as well. Yeah, I've heard since the start that every single person who talks to Wilcox was super impressed with him. I remember again that when before summer, before the whole mess, they really regretted not just following through on his recommendations, because he pointed out every problem that we had, everything that was wrong. I know it's not a new contract, but he's staying longer. Everything that's wrong, every problem that we were having, and why it and what was wrong with it. And they didn't. I'm not saying they didn't listen to him, but they didn't follow through. And now, they have, and he's essentially taken over the role. And I think that's an important piece of news that went a little under the radar today, though, but that has been confirmed, which I shared when Ashworth was sacked, is that they're not going to hire somebody. It's going to be Wilcox and Wilcox and Vivell taking over, to run this, essentially, and that they didn't feel they needed that extra person. Wilcox is well trusted. He was recommended by Barada, right? And so that was the point about, Vivell and Wilcox would be people who were brought in by the people in charge, right? Ashworth was like, Ineos picked Barada, Ineos picked Ashworth. But Barada's the boss. You want the boss to pick the people working under him for the most part. And so now we have people who are left that Barada has picked and trusts and relies on, and that seems to make a lot of sense. And so we don't really need, to get... we don't need to panic. King Rollo, thank you for the donation. Do you reckon Casemiro leaves? When will Cobby sign? Appreciate your work. We could definitely talk about that. We'll kind of go through our squad chart here. And look at all of those things, because I think it is important. And yesterday in the video, I asked a question, which was like, United Red Report, I just on that point, I can't say 100% that I know that, to be fair, that Barada handpicked Vivell, but I believe he's more of a recommendation, not from Ashworth, but from some of the other people, from some of the other people involved. I believe, okay? I believe. I know. I don't aggregate it, because I cannot be sure about that. That is more of a belief than me being sure on that side. Wilcox got the Paraguayan kid over the line. Yeah. But yes, I asked a question yesterday, thanks Alejandro, about do you sell your high ticket players now and go a little bit short, or risk keeping them and hope that a buyer comes around in summer if you can't get your top targets, right? I asked that question, and I really was curious about people's opinions. And for me, it's like, I get, someone would look at it and say, well, it's the season's, wasted. But it is interesting, because if you can move on 2 or 3 players and you go a little bit short, obviously you build a better team in summer. You know what I mean? But it's tricky. It is really tricky, that whole situation. But I think you got to take the money. And I'm talking like Casemiro, if a deal pops up for him, you got to take the money. But then we've got to be able to use some players in there, right? But I'd be more willing to be a little bit weaker and try some of the kids, trial by fire, right? I know that I'd be more willing to do that in that case, for sure. Yeah. Because I think that just being able to spend a lot in the summer makes the biggest difference. If United sold Rashford and Casemiro this month, how much would they get in transfer fees? Probably 30 million for each, maybe something like that. If you're talking about the likes of Casemiro, Eriksson, and Lindelof, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Name taken. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. I think it's correct. I think you take the money and run, and you make it up with the youth at now. And here's the thing too, right? You could still prioritize the first 11 for Europa. Like, let's say the league, we think, okay, top 5's out of reach. There's 2 routes into Europe. 3 routes into Europe, right? One is the league, obviously. The other 2 are Europa and the FA Cup, right? Not FA Cup obviously gets you Europa, not Champions League. We have both of those routes, both competitions we could win. We could prioritize those. And I'm not saying you give up the league, but you can rotate more in the league and prioritize, like Mourinho did, exactly. He did that right his first season, was prioritize Europa League essentially just went for draws in the league to not be, embarrassed. But essentially, we went that way, and it paid off. I mean, it's a little bit of a gamble, but it's a gamble to keep players on high wages and say we hope we qualify for Champions League via the league, especially how competitive it is this year. It's hard. It's going to be tough getting in those positions, but I think that winning Europa is potentially an easier route. I mean, look, what have we won our last 2 Europa games? Is that 3 now? Have we won? No, we've won 2 or 3. Since Ten Hag got sacked, have we won all our Europa League games? 3, right? I think we've got to be. I think we're capable in that competition. Right, Rangers next. Yeah, so 3 games. Yeah, so I think we're capable in that competition to do something. I think if we, and I think we were rotating in a lot of those games too. So if we start our main players, then I think we could win the Europa League, and then that would make a big difference. Yeah, it's true we have over 200 million transfer fees the next year. That's a cash flow thing. It's the cash flow owed on transfers, obviously a big deal. That's going to go up and down. But it is what it is. That's not so much a big deal. That's cash flow. The extra money from Jim Ratcliffe will help on that. So yeah, you'll make the trip to Bilbao if we reach the final. So it's complicated. Heard today that Gore, Collier, Almas, Hugo, and yes, yeah. Remember we talked about this, that most of these young players, they want to move them out quicker and move them out faster. They do. They want to move them out faster, get them out on loan, get them in. That's interesting. But here's what I don't understand about that story about Kvara. I see that Tanzi says that. I see that, yeah. But was the initial report stating a swap with Rashford, and we've had some good sources say that they're not going to do that in January. Am I wrong on that? That's the confusing part. We've had good sources more on the Italian side now say that they wouldn't do a Rashford swap in January. And wasn't the initial from Tanzi that it would be a swap? I'm not seeing this. Yeah, they said they have no interest, but I'm not seeing this. That being said, obviously it doesn't have to be a swap. If we were able to move Rashford elsewhere to Milan, then we could do it. Yes, swaps. Rashford's reporting only Milan. But that is interesting. If Milan put in an obligation, then it could be done. And yeah, if Casemiro left and Rashford went to Milan, it could be done, technically. Yeah, it could be a loan with obligation for us too. But why would they do that? Why would they do that? That's my question. Can someone explain to me? Because I have not kept up on Kvaratskhelia situation. Wouldn't they want a sale now? Like, I guess I don't get what they would gain out of selling him to us right now. Because they know he won't sign an extension. Okay. Now, just bear in mind, whenever I say swap, I don't mean swap. Swaps aren't real. Swaps are sell and buy. Swaps are always a sale and buy on 2 sides. Is there a scenario? Well, no, I think he's going to go to PSG too, mind you. Because the Italian reporters are all talking about PSG. It feels... I don't know. I think we need more. To know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think we need more to say there's something in this, because I don't know. Where's the actual article on this, by the way? Does anybody have it? Is it on RMC? If you have it, drop the link in here. But Why won't Rashford consider Como 1904 if they're willing to pay all his wages? Because it's not about the money. He wants to go to a significant club. That, you know, Como's a little bit of a. I would compare Como a little bit to like Saudi, in that it's like, you know, it's like you get the money, but it's not there. You know, it's a little bit of a prestige project at the moment. Obviously, it is. So yeah, that would be the reason. Yeah, in 5 years, maybe, like. Yeah, it's going to take time for them to be serious. For now, it's a vanity. It's a little bit of a vanity project. No, we could spend if Casemiro leaves, but Kvaratskhelia is expensive. Milan is perfect. I really think Rashford. Like, I want to separate this out in my head. I believe that Rashford will go to Milan. Okay, I think that's where he's going to end up. That's the most solid at this point. They've explored a bunch of the Italian clubs, but that's obviously the most solid one. And they seem to be putting out that he's very important. That he's someone that they really want. And you know, yeah, maybe they're willing only to pay half the wages, but it depends what kind of deal there is there. But what I'm saying is that, Ludwig, if the volume is too low, that's got to be on your end because it's all maximum here. What I'm saying is that if Rashford goes on Milan to loan in Milan and it's only 150,000 a week, that's not enough to pay 70 million for Kvaratskhelia in January. That's just not enough, unless it was a loan. Unless we could get a loan. Unless we could get a loan. Yeah, that would be the only way. But I would kind of wait for Fabrizio and stuff on this one. Wouldn't you? I always get, when it comes to the Italian clubs and stuff, you know, Fabrizio's very good at this on these ones. He was talking about PSG a lot this morning. Well, I think we're gonna have to wait. I think we're gonna have to wait to see on this. Give me just a sec. I thought I was gonna sneeze. I might still. Anyway, there it is. Sorry. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm not convinced on this yet. I'm really not convinced on this yet. But if we just loan Rashford, I don't know how we could afford him unless they'd be willing to loan him. You know what I mean? I don't see how. Now, if we also sold Casemiro, then potentially, yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, I don't see how we're getting a loan. I mean, obviously, at Galatasaray, I got a loan for Osimhen in the end, right? But that was very, very messy and complicated. But hey, we'll see. We'll see. Tanzi is generally, it's usually more France related. And so maybe he's just pushing it via PSG. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe he's pushing it like PSG are beating United to the competition. I could see it that way. You know, I could see it that way. Honestly, I could. I really don't know. I've never myself heard us. Can I ask you here? Have we ever had a solid link to Kvaratskhelia from England side or one of our normal reporters like Fabrizio, who does a lot of reporting on us in Europe? That would be my question. Have we ever had a link to him, like a real link to him? I don't think we have. Like ever, right? I've looked into it because I've wondered if we ever would, but I don't think we ever have. I'm not saying that means it's impossible. It's just it feels off. And I guess I could ask. I mean, I guess I could ask. Might be a good idea. I could ask. Maybe I'll send a message and ask. Yeah, the volume should be fine. We've been to Mwani. Yeah, link to Mwani so much more. Steve Hosking, thank you for joining or rejoining, maybe rejoining. Yeah, if your volume's low, you got to turn it up. So anyway, we'll see there. But let's get into a little bit more of the news. So we've covered some things, right? So what's the latest? Ahmad signs a new deal. He's staying. Wilcox and Vivell are set to take over a lot more, and share the duties, right? Kabi Menu on his contract. So obviously, one of the main things that I covered this a few days ago. I understand the outrage with all the reports and things like that. You saw some of the counter-ish kind of reports recently, right? I think yesterday there was a number of reports saying, no, hold on a second. They're not pushing Kabi and Garnacho and such out of the club. They don't want to sell them. They're not trying to force them out. They're not trying to cause trouble for them. The point is they would have to consider them, but there's also this contract negotiation standpoint. And the simple fact with Kabi Menu is that we're not going to give him the wages maybe that he probably would have gotten 2 or 3 years ago. Okay? We're not. It's not going to happen. Ineos are not giving out the same wages. It's just impossible. It's a part of the negotiations. It's all of that. The most likely scenario by far for all parties, which is what is wanted, is Kabi wants to stay, Amorim wants to keep him, Ineos want to keep him. Everybody wants him to stay. The Ahmad deal is going to help set the tone for contract negotiations. Now, maybe they tell each other what they make and things like that. Maybe they don't. I don't really care. But they will use that to settle it. Omar Barada is really big on this point on negotiations. You can find that old video from him talking at City, where he talks about how players, when they do well, then they want to push on and get bigger contracts, but you have to push back about it because otherwise you cannot maintain financial competitiveness and all that. It's his 5.5-year deal, technically, right? Because it's to summer 2030. So no option, but a 5.5-year contract, essentially. And I do know that they're not giving out 200,000 and likely significantly under that, with more incentive-based deals. That's a lot of it as well. When you look at, like, they're setting the tone. Ahmad's new wage, I would believe, is somewhere around 125. Okay, and I don't know how that includes the incentives. I believe that. That's the closest hint that I've gotten, is it's around that. And that's realistic. That's a good number. That's where we should get, In the past, yeah, we probably would have given 200,000 to Kabi, and that might be what they're asking for. I'm not saying that they are, but that might be what they're asking for. But that's fair. When you look at the wages that we're doing now, I mean, hell, you could go look at Liverpool's wages, right? You could go look at Liverpool's wages. There's like 2 players over, 200,000, and it's Virgil van Dijk, who's, for them, one of the best center backs ever, right? And Mo Salah, who might be the best right winger in football. And I do find this whole narrative over the contract stuff funny, because right now you have Liverpool winning the league with some of their best players, and they're struggling to tie down new deals for them. It's just football, man. Contract negotiations are tough. Sometimes you lose players. Sometimes you just lose players. I'm not saying we're losing Kabi Menu. I'm just saying, my point is that it's like, this is how it goes in football. Players go to earn. You know what I mean? Players go to earn. Players go to earn. That's the reality of it. And it is what it is, but it's like, if Liverpool are having trouble tying down all these players on contracts, then, like, shit happens. Nobody's sitting. I mean, maybe people are sitting there and saying, "Oh, Liverpool are frauds," and but they're building a league-winning side, so obviously they're doing something right. You know what I mean? And they're not just bending and just giving everybody 400,000 just because. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that perspective has to all be balanced pretty well. I really don't know, Krish, on that. I really don't have the answers to that in terms of, because I don't know the details. But in the end, I'm fairly positive that Kabi Menu will get a new deal with United, extended. The other factor is as long as he stays healthy, as long as he stays healthy and stays on the pitch. But everybody wants it to happen. Everybody wants that to happen, and I'm not really concerned about it. Same with Ahmad. It took time, but we got there in the end. I don't think that Kabi Menu is going to go run off to Chelsea because they're going to give him another 25,000 or 50,000 a week. Do you think he's going to do that? I don't think Kabi Menu's that type of person. I don't think he's going to do that, and I don't think that's going to end up in that like that at all. Okay, so those are the main, obviously the main kind of stories around. Let's go to the other stuff. Let me see if this works. I bought this new thing that I can push buttons on. Have you heard that Amram didn't rate Kobe Mainu at first? You know, it's an interesting question. There was some talk from The Athletic, and I think about how he had to prove himself more. I think that extra midfielder, there's like an intensity in it that is needed, and he needs to prove that. And I think the last couple games he's been showing that better. Don't you? Like, I think he made a point when he came out against Newcastle about being really intense in his play, you know, like Ugarte has been, and he need that. You need that. Amram wants that and needs that. He demands a lot from these players for sure. But yeah, let's get on to the other stuff. Let me see if I have this set up right. Let's find out. Push this button. There we go. Sick. I bought one of those little, like, you know, stream tab Neo thingies where you like push a button and it switches scenes, so I can be like, woo, 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 all this kind of stuff really fast. Anyway, sorry. Just playing with my toys here. Yeah, Stream Deck. Yeah. I got it for Christmas actually. So I'm setting up my office at home as well, and so that I can do videos on the weekends in the mornings and times when I get stuck at home. Like today, I wish I'd stayed at home because there's a shitload of snow. Yeah, so I'm getting that set up at home, and I'm gonna have like, and one of our viewers here for a long time has a company that does like wood like cutout wall art stuff, and is sending me a United one to put in there. So I wanted to thank him. He's just sending me one, and I wanted to thank him. And so in the new office, which is the old office, my old setup, but I'll redesigned, I'll have that up, and I think it'll be pretty cool. So I'm gonna kind of decorate it so it looks like, yeah, some RGB in the, but yeah, just get some lights and fun stuff, and I'll get some buttons where when I'm doing the watch longs or they score a goal, I can, like, you know, send the horns and do it very American, you know, with the goal celebrations, with the lights go flying, and anyway, stupid stuff. I'm just having fun. No green screen. Like a real setup. Yeah. Anyway. So this is where we were at on the squad, right? Fog machines and horns whenever Ahmad scores. Exactly. Yeah, it'll be great. So this is where we were talking about the squad, and we were talking about you know, the evaluations of the players and where they're at. Obviously Ahmad is up here, right? We know that Bruno's kind of in the middle. We'll talk about the names on the transfers and add people to the other chart in a second, right? Because I've got two charts. We're talking about the United squad first. Yeah, these people don't know about about Gerard Romero, bro. Exactly. But yeah, anyway, sorry. We're going to evaluate these guys. We've got this good in green. You know, Ahmad is set here. Bruno can play in a couple positions in the front three, and I think he's in yellow because I don't think he's going to be sold, but he's very likely, you know, I'm not sure he's always going to be a first teamer, like the first player, but like that performance he put in against Liverpool was, to me, one of his best performances in 3 or 4 years. And it was not a performance that was just like spamming the ball around and getting lucky. The things he was doing, right, are the things that if he did that on a regular basis, he'd be perfect. Especially the fact that he was actually carrying the ball. How many times have we talked about it, right? The little interplays, carrying the ball, dribbling around defenders, like all of that kind of stuff, right? All of the things that that he was doing there were fantastic, right? I'm not forgetting the rest, trust me, because I've been critical of him. But like the ability to carry the ball is such a huge part of what Amram wants out of his players, right? That's what he wants. The physicality, the fighting through the tackles, the carrying the ball, not just losing it, but those are the performances that he needs to put in on the regular, if you know, just to be the captain and stay and be a part of this moving forward. But he needs to do that, but he did, and so if he can, then great. But that gives him flexibility to continue in the front three. We'll see. Ugarte and Kabi Menu, I think, are pretty obviously the main guys in the middle, right? Every time Amarin wants to put out his best team, he puts out Ugarte and Menu in the middle. And that's why I think I want to keep him. Menu grew into that game. I think he started a little bit rough, but he grew into that game, and the same when he came on as a sub. So that's good there. But behind that, we don't really have a lot of options. I think we have a lot of options. Now, I do think here we could put like, wait, what happened? There he is. We could do like Kone, right? And say, he's a youth player that could potentially come through here. Casemiro's in the red, right? Like they're gonna sell him, right? There's just no doubt about that. They're gonna sell him. I'm gonna move Mount up to here because I really don't think he's been shown as an option for deep. I'm having him in the red because he just can't stay healthy. I'm just gonna build this out a little bit better and put Bruno here because he has been used there anyway. Kone's a youth player, but they want to get, like, he'll play more in youth, but they want to get him in the first team as soon as possible, right? So I think that he has a potential future there. The middle color probably is a light green. I mean, don't ask me about colors. My wife will tell you that my color palette concept is absolutely terrible. The things I call pink and purple, like the things I call that are pink that I call purple, and the things that I call green that are yellow, and vice versa. Don't worry about my colors. But it's also the screen a little bit. It's yellower on my screen than it shows up on that screen. Some of that's just that issue, right? Anyway, so we don't have depth behind Ugarte and Menu. Bruno can kind of play in there. Kone will hopefully get in there, but obviously we need players here. We need one, and then we need to move Casemiro and get another one. The strikers are unconvincing and have to be evaluated. Slightly colorblind is probably true. Yeah. But it's not really. It's just, maybe it's just color stupid. You know what I mean? Like, I'm color unintelligent. Anyway, Bruno and Garnacho. Right now Garnacho's in yellow, but obviously he's also someone that could move into the red, where maybe they don't feel they could evaluate him. This is obviously a huge problem because we started with all these options and now we're down to like virtually none. One proven player in Ahmad. We obviously need another striker who can really carry the burden, and at least another good forward, so we feel like we've got good options. On the left side, Diego Leon is really the only left back worth mentioning. On the right side, Dallo and Mazraoui, I think, could do it. I think they could do it. I do. I think they could. Given the opportunity, I think that they could. I think, again, if we buy another forward, then sometimes you can play Ahmad over here. But the interesting part was against I know we could use wingers here, right? But I don't think when we use fullbacks is as bad as people are thinking. Against Liverpool, we played with two fullbacks, and it was a lot better than we've seen. And a huge part of that was simply the fact that, is simply the fact that they got more training time. Both Dallo and Mazraoui on both sides were doing things different than what they'd been doing, right? They played a lot higher. They played a lot wider. They were positioned way better, right? In the areas that you want them to be. Mazraoui was constantly attacking the box, overlapping, doing those things. Dallo was making much better runs beyond Bruno, things like that. So I think with more instruction, it's not like Dallo and Mazraoui can't play out at fullback. They were better, So I think if we signed a fullback on the left, then I think we'd be okay. Especially if we get a couple of forwards. I think we'd be okay. In the center back situation, we've seen the issues with Lissandro on that left side where it's like there's pluses, right? Like against Liverpool on the ball. There's still the defensive frailty. They still want a left-sided center back long term, but Lissandro can play in a few different positions. and be valuable due to his on ball. Maguire will stay a little bit longer. Maguire will stay a little bit longer, and and I think he's the starting central center back right now. But De Ligt is right behind him on both sides, and Yoro is definitely the long-term, right-sided center back. So I think we're okay here. When Lindelof leaves, we might need more coverage, but Mazraoui could play on the right-sided center back. And so, yeah, left again. I don't think any of these priorities have changed, right? When we go up to this top left side, I don't think any of these priorities have changed. We need a left back. We need a forward, right? A striker or a 10. And that seems to be what they're doing in January, right? That top two was what we were looking at for summer. That's what's being looked at as the highest priority is an attacker and a left back. But the next things are things we cannot not do either, right? We need to get another center back when Evans and Lindelof are leaving. We need to get another forward in. We need to get another forward in. Yeah. We need to get another forward in. Again, after getting one more, we need two forwards. We very likely need somebody now and then another one, like a striker and a 10 long term. And we definitely need at least one more midfielder, at least one more very good midfielder who's near starting level. And then maybe a right wing back. Depends on who we sign up front, maybe. Not sure yet, but maybe. So I think our list is still good in terms of order of priority and what they're dealing with. Now, if we switch over to the names that we have, now we want to add some people, right? So who do I need to add? Who am I missing? God, I can never, what goes on in my brain, right? So first of all, you've got Randall Kolomuani, who right now is probably the most realistic on loan player, right? Most realistic player to come in, who's rated well. They want to try him, all of that, right? If you bring in someone like Kvaratskhelia, by the way, then sure, you could move Ahmad to that right-hand side. We could put Dorgu on here at left back, but again, we talk about this. We'll talk about this. What we're seeing for the most part here is that Kirkez and Mendes are our top targets at left wing back. Just to talk about that situation first. But the issue seems to be that we no, I understand he plays from the left, but like then Bruno could be on the right and Ahmad could play on the anyway. I'm just saying there's different ideas. I don't trust Padula. I don't trust Padula at all. Unfortunately. Hang on one second. But let me talk about let me focus on this point on the Jesus Christ, the number of things I have to click through. Anyway, on the left side, obviously Kirkez and Mendes are two players we rate really highly. The problem is it doesn't seem like we could get either of them now. And I think that that issue becomes, do they want to drop down on their list to do something or wait until summer? And that's one of those questions. Like, do they feel that the alternatives are good enough to push forward now, or sign somebody else? The more this goes on, the less it feels like they'll sign somebody else, which I personally think if they don't follow through on it, it's a big mistake. Shaw can say, Shaw can be returning at any point in time and then not, and, it is what it is. And then they can't rely on him. If Amarim feels like Dalot continued to kind of do the job for a little while, then, yeah. If they felt like Dalot could do the job or something for a little while, then fair enough. But I can understand if they don't want to compromise on their top target there. I still think they should do it, but it doesn't seem like they can get Kirkus or Mendez. And so that's the question. Do they compromise on who they want? Only if they feel they're good enough, and maybe they don't. So it feels more and more like it's going to be a summer thing, even though it's like a top priority now, just because they cannot get the players in, and the cost to sign one of them is probably a lot. It is a massive hole in our squad. Mendez, it seems, I don't know that it's foregone that he's leaving, and Bournemouth seem to not want to entertain Kirka's sale. They're moving on Max Aarons, I believe. And I think that that's more of a fullback that's leaving right now for the signing that they brought in. But I think they're kind of planning for summer for Kirkus to probably leave as well. But I cannot say that I know, except that it feels very difficult for both of those players to leave. Look, I'm not going to lie. This is a huge priority area that they're looking at, but I'm just not sure we're getting signing somebody. I'm just not sure how much we will get in January because of the financial situation. The situation with PSR is that it's fine. Like, again, the point was we don't have to sell to be fine for PSR, but we do have to sell to buy. And we need attacking players really bad now. And we also need that left back really bad. But we have Diego Leon coming in too. I honestly don't know. That's obviously for summer, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know the answer here. But it does feel like less and less like we'll be able to get one of these in. Yeah, Leon is coming in summer. It feels less and less like we'll be able to get one of these top targets in. So maybe a loan. If they haven't wanted to do loans where they're just paying someone wages that they're not going to buy. They haven't wanted to do that. They really haven't, because it's like it's just money down the drain. You know what I'm saying? But it is a concern, and maybe they would consider a loan. Obviously, we've added Kolomuani up here. I think like there's another player to add to the front. What am I missing? There's another player, isn't there? I don't know. Maybe there isn't. Maybe I've got everybody now. Yeah. Amos is still likely to be loaned out. Yeah. So Kolomuani seems like the most likely one here. These are all the other players we're kind of linked with, but it doesn't feel like we're going to do anything now. I'm definitely coming back to these guys in summer. Osimhen, Samu Aghawa, and these guys. I'm definitely coming back to the striker situation in summer, because if by summer Xerxes or Hoyland hasn't totally kicked on, or both haven't kicked on, then one of them will likely leave. Then when we move Rashford, then we could potentially do it. Lee Kang In, that's a good, and he's a 10, right? He's a 10, right? And we got a good link to him, right? Correct? He's a 10, right? That was the name. Thank you. There was somebody. He's a 10, right? Like, could he be kind of a 10 in this system? We have very, 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 very little links to these guys, so I can move them down. He'd be like a 10 in this system. Left-footed. So maybe for the right? More of a right? Okay. Javi Simons. We haven't heard a lot about these guys in a while, so I'll just move them down. But we did make a South American signing. Lee Kang In. So like that would be an interesting one, because if you get him, then obviously it gives you that Ahmad could go to right wing back thing. So it's kind of like Lee Kang In, Dibbling, Kenda are options that give you that flexibility with Ahmad to play on both sides. So yeah. We're not hearing much on center backs because it's not going to be dealt with in January. Midfield is a little confusing. I'm sticking with these names because we're not hearing other names at the moment, but I think it's still more likely to be summer. I'm looking at that Tanzi article on my phone, and it says It's 99% of it is about PSG. The title is about PSG. All of that is about PSG. I don't know. I feel like a little bit like we're being used here. I feel a little bit like we're being used here. It just feels like we are. If somebody else links him, great. But yeah. Yeah. Embuemo, I haven't seen a good link to Embuemo yet. I'm not saying it wasn't mentioned by somebody, but I haven't seen a good one there as of yet. But yeah, look, I think that, yeah, they could surprise us, and maybe they will, right? I think right now, obviously, the Kolo Muani loan is the most realistic thing. The most realistic thing for January. We'll see if they pull something out of the bag on this left back situation. Those would be the two main areas of priority. But come summer, you know, I'm definitely focusing on striker, on Ederson, and that we'll get one of these left backs in pretty quickly. Is Kolo Muani dependent on Rashford? Probably, maybe. It depends on the cost. It depends. Like, they could do a little bit. You know, they could do a little bit, like a little thing with just a loan. But they need to move people on. And look, the update I had yesterday was that, look, as of this moment in time, there's not as much concrete on players being moved out as, like, they need offers. It's they need offers. Like, there's a lot of yap at the moment. There's all this yap about Casemiro and Saudi and all of that, but they need offers. And they're not getting offers. Until they get offers, that's, Milan and Rashford is. Rashford out is the most concrete thing for sure, because there's actual offers kind of like floating around. And obviously his brother and agent are meeting with people, and we're going to bring them back to United, I think by end of the week. But, to decide on the right outlet. But there's not offers for other people. There's a lot of little loans and things for the academy kids. It's all little stuff that adds up that is good. But we need offers. Anthony has interest from clubs like there's that in Greece, but he doesn't want to go. So that doesn't do anything for us. So we're not getting a lot of offers from, outside of all the talk. We need people to actually make offers. So until that happens, it'll be pretty quiet. Until that happens, it'll be quite quiet. It will. But yeah, I mean, we're just gonna have to wait and see. Right now, I'm not expecting a lot. Like, as of today, obviously they're looking at all of this kind of stuff, but I'm not expecting a lot. And because again, the biggest thing is that they also don't want to compromise on players when they buy a player just to rush it in January. But yeah, it's until we get offers, some of it's a little bit moot, right? If we get an offer for Casemiro, really a solid offer that he wants to take, then they'll have to make that decision on, okay, do we go short? Because who else can we sell? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, who else could we buy to bring in Casemiro to replace him? Who else could we buy? I don't know. I didn't got the answer there, right? Like, who could we replace him with, or do we go short? Because I don't think you can get like Ederson or any of your main targets now. But yeah, we're gonna have to wait. There's obviously a few weeks, 3 weeks to go in the window. It's not like it's over, but we need some offers to come in to kind of scoot things along. And at the moment, it is definitely slow. It's not totally shocking that not a lot of clubs want to buy our Deadwood on big wages. This is just kind of the mess that we've been in. But a Rashford sale would help a lot, and a Casemiro sale would help a lot. Those are the biggest things. Eriksen, if he's got 6 months left, if someone wants to come in and take him a little bit early, that would help as well. But yeah, I'm concerned on the left side because it is a huge priority. As we know, they expanded the list to Dorgu, all of that. But it's if they want to compromise, it's also financial. If they get a big offer for somebody in, then maybe they'll kick that up. But yeah, we've added Keola Muani and Lee Kang In since the last time to this list. For now, and Dorgu, and so we'll see. We will see. We wake up to a signing one day, not necessarily like that, but I think if we get an offer to go, then we could definitely, we might try to do. We'll try to do something. But I'm telling you, it is. I understand the pickle that they're in here, where it's a matter of like, if you're gonna sell players, you need to replace them, but it is hard for United to buy. And one of the things they want to be super, super disciplined on in the market is not giving big wages and not overpaying. Like, you look at the situation with like Xerxes, right? Xerxes we bought for only like, 40 million, 35 million pounds because of the clause he was on. If we sell him in summer, we only need like 25 million to break even because we got such a good deal on him. So if a signing doesn't work out, that's the reason it's been so hard for us. Big wages and all of that. But Xerxes comes in, he's on 120K, and we only need 25 million in summer to get back our money. So if it doesn't work, it's easy to turn around and correct a mistake. When you buy Antony and 3 years later, you still need 40 million to break even on him. 3 years later, you still need 40 million, and he's on big wages. That's almost impossible to resolve, right? That's the issue that we're dealing with, for the most part here. So they don't want to make that mistake in a panic and say, oh, we're going to pay for somebody who's 30 million, 40 million to get him in January. If it doesn't work, because not every transfer is going to work. Then if it doesn't work, it's much harder to turn around and fix that at that point in time. So they're being disciplined, they're being smart. I'm not saying I love it. Look, I want us to bring people in as much as anybody else, in here. I really do. More than anything, right? This left back thing, I've been following this for ages on the players that we want for this, and I know we want them, but I also want them to be smart, because what they're doing right now is trying to fully demolish, the sins of the past, essentially, and not repeat those errors, and they're trying to fix it. And you can say what you want. Maybe I'm being too positive about it. I'm not really being positive about it. I'm just, it's understanding the reality, even if I'm not loving it. I can understand it, okay? I can definitely understand it, even if I don't love it. And so yeah, we'll have to see. No, I don't think we could buy Ederson till summer. Till summer. Yeah, as soon as you hit that 75, 80 million, you're totally correct. The bigger the fee, the worse it tends to be. I mean, look at City, right? Grealish, like, some of their biggest transfers have been flops, right? And they did a lot better when Barada was there as well, when they were buying in the 30, 40, 50 range. And I think we've done better sticking in that range too. We're not going to attract anyone in summer if we finish 14th with no. I don't agree necessarily. I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's that simple of a way in terms of attracting players. I mean, Chelsea signed. When Chelsea finished 13th, how many players did they sign? A lot, right? Let's check, actually. What was Chelsea's transfer record? I mean, it didn't hurt Chelsea, in the midst of a rebuild from a new owner. Under new ownership. They brought in, Pedro Neto, João Felix, Jadon Sancho, Dewsbury Hall, Philip Jorgensen, Anselminho. They brought in a lot of players. Cole Palmer, Caicedo, and so I'm talking about the attraction of players, right? Not the money, but the attraction of players. I don't think, big clubs are big clubs, right? Big clubs are big clubs. They are. Yeah, big. I mean, we still be attractive. Yeah, you pay a bit more wages, but 100K is way bigger than you get at Bournemouth, right? You know what I'm saying? Like there's a balance there, because even paying 80 to 125,000 a week on transfers is way more than you're going to get at Bournemouth or Everton or something like that. So a reasonable wage for us under a new structure is a huge increase compared to some of these mid-table clubs, like the regular mid-table clubs. Yeah, we've missed on Champions League and made big signings before. We'll be okay on that front. On that front, I mean, we need the revenue. Obviously, it would help. We need the revenue, no doubt about that. But yeah, you know, prioritizing Europa as the season goes on is probably a good strategy that I would say, for sure. Yeah, I mean, once we bring our offer for Rashford, um, if somehow, how do I put this? Like, if somehow a deal comes back for Rashford that includes like an obligation or some way that there's a permanent deal on the table and we can get that agreed, then that does open up big financial, you know, doors for us as well. And the same with Casemiro. So we're going to have to wait. We're going to have to wait. Chelsea sold Hall, Livermento, Guehi, Mount. I know they sell academy players all the time. And if you want to fund big transfers, that's kind of what you have to do. Kolomwani's a striker. I think in this system, he'd play as a mixture. He's one of those like Rashford, like he can do both. He's like a 10 striker. Like, I don't know. I put him in both categories in this system. I put him in both categories, essentially. But really, we're going to have to wait and see if offers come in. That was the word I got yesterday, is it's slow right now. We're going to have to wait and see if offers come in to see if we can do more business in January. But at the end of the day, if we take the hit now and have a lot more in summer, then that would be good. Then that would be okay. Like, I would, again, I'm debating, but I'm for being short if it means we can, you know, look, if by summer we move on Eriksson, Lindelof, Evans on free agents, Casemiro, Rashford, let's say like Garnacho and Anthony, if somehow we moved all that by summer, we would have an enormous amount of ability to spend, frankly, we would. And if whatever we can do now to move towards that, right, the better. Because that will give us the ability to do whatever we need in the summer. And you also have to bear in mind, when you look at the targets that we're talking about, I don't think we need Champions League to attract them. You know, Kirkes, you know, Nuno Mendes knows Amorim, right? So that's good. I think we could move most of them. We could, you know, some of them are free agents. Casemiro and Rashford are very likely between now and summer to leave. So we could move most of them. Kirkes is from Bournemouth. Mendes knows Amorim, so we can get somebody there. You know, on the left side, I think you could get one of those players. I think one of these strikers you could bring in as well. You know, Ederson, maybe. Tchouaméni might be a little difficult for in 13th, but we'll see. There's center backs that would certainly want the step up as well. Same with the right, you know, the right side. I mean, Dibbling coming from Southampton, right? They might get relegated. So it's like, sure, there's always options, right? So I'm not really worried about attracting it. Osimhen, it would have to be because of he's United, you know, supporting United. That would have to be a big factor in that. You know, we'd get Igalo back on the phone with him, right? Dewsbury Hall, I haven't heard any recent links to, but we were interested in before. It's curious. Yeah, no, I mean, they're getting relegated for sure. Yeah, so yeah. Anyway, let's see. Look, we need offers. If we're gonna do anything in January, now we need offers. We need offers for sure, and that's the reality as it stands right now. We need some offers. We need some of these players who want to go. We need some of these players who are potentially leaving. We need their agents to bring offers to the table. You know, and if they're not going to bring offers to the table, then it's going to be difficult for us to do much of anything. So, you know, yeah, they've just got to be able to, that's just what's necessary. And until they bring some offers, then, you know, we're a little bit hung up here. We can sit fine in PSR. Let me try this again. We can sit in PSR totally fine, but we can't really spend. So we're okay if we end up sitting where we are, that's fine. Shoring up the contracts for Ahmad, getting Mainu done, all that, fine. But if we want to spend, we need to move players on. We need to move players on. We really do. And I think that the biggest reality is that we're going to get there by summer. More realistically, to get most of those targets in, it's for sure summer, not even just realistically, it's for sure going to be summer to get most of those players in that we are talking about, that we are looking at. It's for sure going to take till summer to do so. But maybe if we can get Casemiro out or Rashford on a permanent deal, then it's going to open the door to pulling something out of a hat. I mean, I'm not saying nothing yet, but we've got to be real about this. We really do. And I don't think it's leaving Amarim out to dry, because they're not going to sack him. They're not going to sack him. And it's not about Ineos pulling, it's not a, it's a weird situation here, right? Like if I joined a business and they had no money, would I get the blame for not spending? No, of course not. It would be nonsensical. Like if you joined a committee and they're like, okay, you're responsible for setting up this event and your budget is $50. If you put on a crappy event, no one can blame you for that, because that's just the reality of the situation. There's nothing you can do about it. So it's like, you can't sit here and say, okay, well, Ineos have to do something. Like what? Get a points deduction? What do you want them to do, honestly? Like that's the question. The thing I try to get across. Like there's reality as well. What do you want them to do? You know what I mean? Of course they knew it when they bought, but it doesn't change the reality of it. What do you want them to do? They knew they were going to be in for criticism and all the stuff that's getting more now, that's happening now, because it's going to take time to fix all of this. They didn't give Casemiro his contract. They didn't give Rashford his contract. They didn't give Anthony his contract. They didn't give, Eriksen his contract. They didn't give any of these players their contracts. What can they do? No matter how much money they have, that doesn't change PSR. Really think about it. What actually can they do? It's not willingness. They can't pay the debt off. They cannot. If they pay the debt off, we're finished. Like, just imagine this for a second, okay? They pay off all the Glazers' debt. Okay? They pay off all the Glazers' debt. And the Glazers are still majority owners, right? Guess what the Glazers can do? They can just take out more debt. You know what I'm saying? Like, they could take out more debt. You realize that? They could literally, the next day, go take out a new credit line and start buying jets again. And start flying all over the place on United's dime the next day. They could do that. You realize, like, that's why they're not going to pay the debt. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. They cannot do it. Yeah. And paying off the debt would have not small, it would have some impact on PSR. I think the cost for the debt has been 20-30 million, something like that, So obviously it would have an effect. For sure. It would help. But not as much as people think, and it's not as simple as people think either. But they're not going to pay someone else's debt off. If the Glazers would give them more equity for debt, then that would be a different story. No doubt about that. That would be a different story. Yeah. But, like, I'm genuinely asking, what could they do? That 100 million went into the club for investments, for the things like, they upgraded Carrington, cash flow for operations, stuff like that. We don't know exactly what they spent on that. I think in the long term, then, but why would the Glazers do it, right? We're dealing with the Glazers at the end of the day. Why would they give up more of the club? You're saying you bet on the Glazers for being generous. Because realize something, if the Glazers give up equity for Ineos to pay off the debt, that's essentially the Glazers paying the debt. They're saying, yeah, our shares are worth X amount. We're going to give that for the debt. I'm not betting on the Glazers' generosity, ever. I'm not expecting them to ever be generous, to ever give anything away, right? So, yeah, I'm not expecting that. That's the reality of it. I know it's tough. It's all really tough to swallow, JJ. But like someone was comparing in our Discord in the Patreon channels there. And by the way, I'm just gonna plug the Patreon because I rarely ever do, but it is a wonderful place to hang out. And they were telling me I need to talk about it more. As well. Well, maybe they weren't telling me, but we were talking about it the other day, and I should promote it more. But people were talking about this earlier about the number of staff, and it was like, some years ago, United have like doubled their number of staff, and it's just totally unnecessary when you compare it. But regardless, look, it is all really tough to swallow. The difficult cuts, the cost cutting measures, the things that they're doing on top of it, but it's all for a reason. It's all for a reason. It's all for a reason. They're all connected, right? Like, so, I get it, but the cuts that they're making are the things that are allowing them to not have to sell just to make PSR in January. Without the cuts, they'd be selling players without buying just to survive the PSR situation. That's the truth. So that's got to change. It's tough. It's really tough. It's really tough to swallow, but not liking things doesn't change reality. I don't like it. I don't love it. I'm not excited about it. It's not like I don't get up in the morning and say, yay, we cut staff. That means we're going to win something. It's just reality is what it is. There's no matter what we do, that's still the case. These financial problems that we deal with are the truth. They are the reality. And we have to do, and we have to kind of suffer a little bit here. We just do, and that's on top of needing to get a whole stadium done at the end of the day, right? Find more investors. Well, again, someone's going to have to be willing to give up their equity. In order to get more money in. Someone will have to give up equity for that. Qatar, anything that mentions Qatar is pointless. There's no other buyers on the market. Like, you have to realize, why was there so little interest in United? Like, think about that for a moment. The biggest football club on earth, right? Maybe second, but up there, right? Came down to two buyers where one of them arguably wasn't even legitimate. Why do you think that was the case? The reason that was the case is because of how bad it was financially at the club, just how bad the finances were, that nobody wanted to deal with it. Nobody. They looked at it and said, this is a shit show. This isn't worth it. It's over leveraged. It's out of, it's a lot of money. And like, wealthy people aren't generous, Wealthy people aren't generous. They're not going to sit there and say, we're going to overpay for an over-leveraged shit asset that isn't worth what people were going to pay for it, isn't worth what the Glazers were asking for. Yeah, the asking price as well. It's just the Glazers. Like, you got to let blame sit where it is, right? And so Jim Ratcliffe did whatever he could, because remember, his first offers were to buy the whole club, right? His first offers were to buy the whole club. It's not like he didn't want to buy the whole club. He did what he did to get in and start fixing things. Without it, we'd be in serious trouble. There'd probably just be more debt leverage to keep the club running somehow until it completely collapses. But yeah, I mean, it took a hell of a long time. It took the whole thing still took a year to even try, and over a year to get done. And Jim Ratcliffe had to threaten them to walk away. Jim Ratcliffe had to threaten them to walk away around Christmas a year ago before they finally even followed through on things they'd already agreed to do months earlier. This is who we're dealing with as the majority owner of this club, you know? It's a mess. There's not a better answer. You know, it sucks. The whole thing sucks. It does. But we are on the right track. As far as like, you know, Ashworth, yeah, that's a loss. But you're never going to get 100% right on football. And the problem is you have to be able to you have to have the financial ability to you have to have the financial wherewithal to, yeah, I mean, that is funny. Anyone mentioning Elon Musk, because he bought Twitter and then he cut like 80% of the staff. And it's still losing money. um, uh, right, like you have to have the ability to make errors on the football pitch, right? Because you're never going to have 100% transfers, right? You're never going to have 100% on hires. You're never going to have 100% on anything. And it's silly to say, well, they made a bad hire, therefore they suck. Everybody makes bad hires, you know? Liverpool made a bunch of bad hires, you know? Chelsea hired like 30 different people and sacked 25 of them, you know? But they had so much money being pumped in, you know, from different situations. No, two is what it is, you know? And on Ten Hag, it really cost very little difference between him getting, like, money wise, it cost very little difference between sacking him in summer and later. But why did that even happen in summer? At the end of the day, a big reason for that is because it took so long for the Glazers to approve the deal that Ineos were only in the club in February and didn't feel like they had enough of a foothold to make a hire in summer. You know, at the end of the day, you can even blame that because that deal was agreed in like September. The Glazers took 3 extra months to work out the terms with Ineos, or they would have been in earlier last season. They would have been more prepared for summer. They would have been able to do more. Okay. And that makes a big difference. That's a big difference in all of this. It's all causal because it was a mistake. But the thing is, you have to be able to make mistakes. You have to be able to make mistakes in football. Not every transfer works. Not every signing works. Not every hire works. But right now, we can't make any. But they did not screwed because they made one error. You know, they've corrected it. They're going to make more errors on the football side, for sure. No doubt about that. They're going to make more errors on the football side. We have to be able to afford not, and maybe it's an error, maybe it's just a transfer that didn't work out. Every single club does it. I mean, City spent $100 million on Grealish. Arguably as big an error as anything we've made, but they're rolling along well because they cheated, but because for other reasons as well, right? You have to be able to make those kinds of mistakes. It just has to. Otherwise, you know, nobody's going to be 100%. There's just absolutely no way that anyone's ever going to get 100% right in football. And you've got to be able to do it. You know, you've got to be able to do it. You've got to be able to do what you can. So, yeah, I mean, it's just what it is right now. I'm not happy about the situation of where things are today. But hopefully by summer we can spend the money. We can do what we can, get players out, and we can do what we need to do. So I hope so. In the meantime, I do think that, you know, Amarim will continue to improve us significantly. You know, we saw with training how we put in against Liverpool with the squad that we have. I'm not saying that means that's evidence that you should not buy. It's just, you know, let's keep coaching, keep working, keep improving, see what we can do, and ideally, you know, we can really fix up the squad come summertime. All right, I'm going to end it there. Like I said, in kind of summary, until we get some offers, you know, we're obviously a little bit stalled, but we really do need offers. And beyond that, they're not going to sack Amarim because they can't sign players for him in January. You know, they're not going to sack him. You know, he's not been hung out to dry. He's going to coach the team and keep improving and keep working, and they're going to give him that support, and then they're going to back him in the summer when they can spend. Or if they can sell some players, they'll back him now. You know, as soon as they can spend, they will get him more players. And he is a huge key part of building this. Remember, he was Barada and Wilcox's guy. They're not hanging him out to dry. He knows. He said it himself. He knows. He knows the situation. He said himself, he knows that everybody knows the situation that we can't do much in January. He's not stupid. No one's getting the wool pulled over their eyes here, okay? Anyway, thank you all for hanging out with me again today. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do our live pre-match, all that kind of stuff, and everything. So again, as usual, thank you all for hanging out with me. Really appreciate you all being here. What, Orny? What did he say? Liverpool. Oh no. Yeah, he didn't link us at all. We were getting baited. That's what I thought. We were getting baited. Yeah. No mention of Manchester United for Cavera. See, we were getting used. That's what I thought. I did not. Like I said at the beginning, I wasn't buying this. PSG emerging as a leading contender. Chelsea interested. Liverpool are attentive. It was bait. Including us was bait. It was totally bait. 100% bait. That's not a surprise. Not a surprise at all. That's what I thought when we started it and we were discussing it. It was bait. So you got to be careful. You got to be real careful. Some of these are. If we wanted him, certainly we would be in the. You know, he would be mentioning us here, but we're not being mentioned at all. So. All right, well, let's end it there. Maybe we'll see. Napoli don't want Rashford in January. Napoli don't want Rashford in January. No, not right now. They can't afford him either. Anyway, shit. We need offers if we want to do anything, but yeah, it feels like those stories were bait on Kvaratskhelia, which is not super surprising. Okay, everybody, have a good rest of your day. Enjoy. We'll be back tomorrow, and hey, head up. There are better times to come, no matter what it looks like now. It'll be fun. Anyway, have